To my dearest sons, Alexander and Rufus, greetings from Jerusalem. I apologise for not returning as soon as planned, but events here have been somewhat unexpected. It's really hard to get someone else's blood off your hands. Sorry, let me rewind. That's probably not a great way to begin. You could write a book about what I have just experienced, but I wanted to give you a brief account. More details will follow. The Friday before Passover started out as an ordinary day. It was a lovely morning in Jerusalem, perfect for the Passover celebrations. As you boys know, it's my favourite time of year. I love that Passover feeling. The journey from North Africa seemed to take ages. I couldn't wait until the celebrations began. On Friday, the atmosphere in Jerusalem was electric. Even first thing in the morning, the streets were already buzzing, the frenzy of the last-minute shopping before it all kicked off. The streets got busier and busier, and I thought initially it was down to the Black Friday sales, but it soon became clear that something else was going down here. You know the kind of situation that you hear about in the news about violence and riots breaking out? Well, that's what it was like. I was just trying to get to the Weatherspoons, for a soft drink, of course. But then suddenly I was squeezed into a corridor of highly strung, sweaty mob. Clearly something had agitated them. "What's going on?" I shouted over the Rami. "He's been crucified at last." "Who?" "Jesus," came the answer. Remember when we heard about this Jesus? The rumours like wildfire reached us in the north. Stories of miracles and radical teaching. Last we heard, there was talk that he was the Messiah, the one who was going to raise the people of Israel. Well, I've been hearing that he even stood up to the Pharisees, the religious teachers of the law. That's not a good idea for any Messiah, come on. In fact, is that not the best way of telling everyone that you're not the Messiah? "Crucify! Crucify!" People were shouting all around, and it was getting louder. I could tell from the volume that he was approaching on his death walk. What had this man done to deserve the death sentence? I couldn't make sense of it. But then I got a glimpse of him. Well, what was left of him. Even from a distance, I could see that he was mangled, covered in blood, a crown of thorns digging into his head, stripes across his body from the floggings. The soldiers were slagging him, beating him each step as they carried his cross. You should have heard the crowd. It was frenzied. It was like an old firm match. "Crucify him!" Spitting, punching as he stumbled past. I just froze in the moment. I thought maybe I could just blend in with the crowd and observe what all this carnage was about. And I watched as Jesus approached weakly, struggling under the weight of the beam, forced on by the soldiers' whips. He grew weaker. And then it happened. Right in front of me. We made eye contact. I saw the whites in his eyes. And then he just crumpled right there at my feet. The soldiers whipping him. But he wouldn't get up. He couldn't get up. Then, without warning, "You, African!" I looked up to see a sword pointing at me. "You, African, you help him!" And before I knew what was happening, I found myself helping this victim, this bleeding man to his feet, and I could see the fear in his eyes. My heart was pounding. Then I picked up his cross, shouldering the weight of the rough wooden beam. And I started walking behind this wreck of a man. And as I was looking down, I could just follow the trail of his blood through a corridor of verbal and physical abuse. You know, it was so close, it felt like they were shouting and spitting at me. And then mixed in with the faces of the crowd were faces of his family and his friends, and I could see them sobbing and crying out for him, stretching out to try and touch him. It was so distressing to see. My heart broke. The wood that I was carrying was already saturated in his blood, and I could feel it drip down my shoulder. And I was suddenly just overcome with shock. It felt like I was the one who was going to be crucified. Alex and Rufus, I want you to know that that walk has changed my life. Watching this man being spat on, seeing him stumble on with what seemed a strange determination to get to his death. He kept going. I was surprised he didn't try and run away or defend himself in any way or resist the Romans, but he just kept going. And we got to Golgotha, the place of the skull. I couldn't drop the cross quick enough and get out the way. I was so scared. I didn't want to get any more involved, but I just couldn't leave. Something held me there, glued me to the spot. I stood and I watched from a distance. And from a distance I saw the nails go in. I heard his cries. I saw the tears in his mother's eyes. And I saw him being lifted up. It was horrific. Crucifixion is not humane. Despite his agony, I saw people shaking their heads and saying, "He saved others. He can't save himself." How could people be so cold? It was as if the devil himself was speaking through the passers-by. And the priests, they joined in, the religious leaders. They spat, "Let the Messiah, the King of Israel, come down from the cross so that we might see and believe." I was so torn. Even if this guy had claimed to be the Messiah, surely he didn't deserve this. I wanted to go and fight back for him. I wanted to spit back at them. But you know, Jesus just responded, "Forgive them, Father. They don't know what they're doing." I stood there for hours, just glued to that spot. I wanted to do something, but I'm ashamed that I was too scared to move. After 3 hours of him hanging there, it suddenly went dark. Dark as if, like the middle of the night. And it felt like God himself couldn't bear to look down on this scene of abuse. And after another 3 agonizing hours, I had turned to walk away, but I was stopped in my tracks. Jesus just shouted aloud, my God, why have you forsaken me?" And then with a loud cry, he screamed, "It is finished!" And I watched him die. His head just dropped. You know, it was as if he decided it was the right time to die. You know, I've not witnessed any crucifixions before this, but the person next to me said that normally people just die and then slowly, you know, they die slowly and just fade away. But it was like Jesus announced it was over. But that was when the ground shook like a proper earthquake. Everyone was stunned. We all fell over and I held on to the rocks till the ground stopped shaking. And when I got to my feet, I heard the Roman centurion that was guarding him. He himself said, "Surely this man was a son of God." My brain was hurting. Had they just killed God's son? If he did have the power to save others, then why didn't he save himself? It was obviously all over. So I started walking back to Jerusalem with the rest of the group that were there. The scribes and the chief priests were right behind me. And that's when I saw servants from the temple rush up towards them, and they were crying, saying, "The curtain has been torn from top to bottom." "Who's done such a thing?" the priests screamed. The servant replied, "It happened during the earthquake." I'll never forget the fear in the eyes of the priests. And they all just ran past me, running towards the temple. Earthquakes, curtain torn in two. What does this mean? Was this the hand of God? Why would he rip the curtain? If that was there to provide a barrier, a safe barrier between us and him, then why would he rip it? Right there, I just started to shake. I couldn't get back to the Airbnb quick enough. Everyone was staring at me with my blood-coloured clothes. And you should have seen your mother's face as I arrived back late without the shopping and covered in blood. "You won't believe what just happened," I said as I collapsed in the room in a heap. My emotions were just all over the place. Your mother and I have just sat for hours as she listened, as I offloaded all that's just gone on. It's hard to get someone else's blood off your hands. I've just finished washing. And when I was doing so, I broke down several times, completely drained by the whole experience. I can't help but think that this isn't the end of the story. But time will tell. I wanted to tell you while it is fresh that my mind just keeps returning to the curtain. Strange thought. As I've been thinking about washing Jesus' blood off me. What if Jesus' death had a purpose? What if he was opening the way? I know that it might seem like I've lost my mind, but I just can't wait to chat this through to you face to face. But I'll be home as soon as I can. See you soon, boys. Oh, and please don't forget to feed the oxen.